He's going to get political on us. No, I'm not. I'm not going to get political on you. I've been a teacher for too long, and you know, you have to be careful about what you say to children and be neutral. But what I'm going to tell you about is something about myself. I'm adopted, and I was born in Canada, and I felt like I was a good citizen from age 6 to, I'm not going to tell you my age, but now, you'll have to guess. But I am very proud to be a citizen. I read a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and he said that citizenship is very important, but you have to carry your weight. You know, it's just not easy to, you just don't become a citizen and it's over. There's a lot of wonderful things that come with citizenship. Well, I thought I was a citizen, and my mother was a very organized person, and she had my naturalization papers, and she had my baptismal papers, but there was not a birth certificate. And so as I got older and I was getting ready to get married, you know, we went down and they said, you need to have a birth certificate. And I said, well, I don't have one. This is what I have. And I was adopted in the 50s from a Catholic orphanage. So, you know, they don't have those things. And I even checked. I went to Canada. I knocked on the big door of the nunnery and I said, I want to know if I can get a birth certificate. Well, no, everything's buried in the basement. You know, we don't divulge that information. It's a closed adoption. So I thought, oh, well, I guess I will never have a birth certificate. So I would always use those papers if I would go to Canada or to Mexico, and I enjoyed my life. Well, about 1.5 years ago, my friend wanted to go to Mexico, and she said to me, well, let's go, let's have fun. And I said, well, I can't go, I don't have a birth certificate. And so I was sharing this information with my students, and that, you know, children that are age 10, they're just so into their teacher is perfect. And I told them about this. I don't have a birth certificate, and they said, "Oh, Mrs. Gardner, you're going to have to watch out for Sheriff Joe. He's going to get you." And I go, "Yeah, he is. And if I get stopped, you know, I better be careful." So, you know, my son was really adamant about helping me. So he said, "You know, Mom, I think now those records are with the government. I think that, you know, you can get those records at this point." So, you know, he's a computer whiz, and he got the record or the birth certificate for me, which was amended, and it had my adoptive parents' names on there. And so I was so happy to have that. And it was a little on the expensive side. So I thought, okay, easy, I'm just going to go down and get my passport, and I can go with my friend and go to Mexico. I get down there, and she says, "You're not a citizen." And I go, "I'm not?" And so I showed her all my papers, and she goes, "That doesn't mean anything. You know, you have naturalization papers, you have a Canadian birth certificate." So she said, "Well, all I need is your mother's birth certificate." So then I went on my little detective investigation role again, and it turns out my mother didn't have a birth certificate. And she was, you know, Italian-American, born in Pennsylvania, and in those days, they didn't have birth certificates because, you know, they would go to the Catholic Church, get baptized and all that, and then, you know, that's what they would carry to make them citizens. And her parents were immigrants from Italy. So I had spent money on investigating that. And so I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? So I went down to the immigration office, and they said, well, you know, let's look at your paperwork. And in the small, tiny writing, there was a number. And in front of that number, it had an A. And it said, well, this is your alien number. You know, and I thought, what? I'm an alien. So, you know, she said, Well, this is easy. We know you're a citizen because this petition for naturalization means it was sent in and you were registered and you probably had a certificate of citizenship, but maybe your mother lost it or whatever. So they go on the database and they don't see me on there. So I thought, oh my gosh. So I started questioning, you know, maybe I am an alien or I'm not of this earth or whatever. But she said, well, what we'll do is we'll send this information in and they will do a manual search. So that night I went home and I just envisioned, you know, these people with these big file cabinets, you know, looking for me, you know, manually. And I thought, oh, it's going to take months. They're never going to find me. And they did find me, and they said, well, because you're so old, you weren't in the database. So I'm like, thanks. So anyway, they did find the information. I had to follow up and go back down to Homeland Security, and they found that. So I filled out an application, and only $380. You send that in, and I did receive the receipt. So I live by myself, so I was jumping around the house, I'm a citizen, I'm a citizen. And my cats went running and my dog was like, oh. So, you know, I called up my son and I said, oh, I'm a citizen. He's like, oh, Mom, I'm so proud of you. And so at this point, you know, I substitute often at the school that I retired from. So now I'm really anxious to go see my students during the 6th grade and say, guess what, I'm a citizen, and Sheriff Joe's not going to come get me. You know? And they'll probably clap and be happy. So, you know, don't take your citizenship for granted because it is a very unique and special thing. Thank you.
I was nervous tonight that she was coming up here without notes, and she was a little nervous that she might forget about segments of her speech. But when you're using a personal story, you tend not to forget. As you're speaking, like, yeah, I know the subject matter. I probably said this story 15 times before. I'm just speaking in front of a larger audience, but it's the same thing, and you did it very well. I really enjoyed your use of humor in this speech. That was a surprising treat. Comments like, watch out for Sheriff Joe. Whoa, I'm an alien. And you're in the database. And even your cats and dogs were celebrating. Very, very good, very, very good use of humor. Two recommendations. One, and this is always an issue for a lot of speakers, okay? The issue of where do you place your hands when you're speaking. A couple times, well actually a few times, I caught you as what we say, we're holding the fig leaf.
Oh gosh.
You got your hands right here. Okay. Sometimes you have to tell yourself that it's okay when you're not using a gesture to just put your hands just at your side. Another thing I caught was about 4 or 5 times you use the filler words you know. It's not an or but that's still a filler word I would watch out for in the future. When your hands were in the fig leaf position, your gestures were actually quite well done. And they actually, for me, they really added to your speech. Particularly the portion where you said you were dealing with the people with the big file drawers. You actually used it. Your hands were in a position where you were going through file drawers. Very well done. And your gestures were very, very natural. Overall, great speech. I look forward to hearing more speeches from you. Thank you.